Not everyone deserves to hear your story. That's a hard truth, but one that every person who has ever tried to grow, build, or dream eventually learns. The problem with telling everyone your story is that not everyone listens with the same intention. Some people listen to understand you, others listen to measure you, and a few, unfortunately, listen to find weakness. When you share your dreams, your failures, your lessons with the wrong audience, you risk handing over the very energy you need to keep going. I've learned that your story is like a seed, fragile in its early stages, powerful once it's rooted. But if you plant it in the wrong soil, it doesn't matter how good the seed is, it won't grow. The same applies to your personal journey. In the beginning, when your vision is still forming, when your faith is still fragile, when your results haven't yet arrived, that's when you must protect it most fiercely. People who don't understand your process will question your direction. You'll project their fears onto your dreams. They'll remind you of statistics, failures, and what usually happens. But the truth is, what usually happens doesn't apply to you when you've decided to move differently. When I talk to young entrepreneurs or people trying to change their lives, I often tell them, you don't need everyone to believe in your story. You just need to keep writing it. Because validation is a dangerous addiction. The more you chase approval, the less you listen to your own intuition. Sometimes the best way to protect your story is to stop explaining it. Let your results become your language. Let your consistency become your proof. You don't have to argue with disbelief. You don't have to convince doubters. The people meant to understand you will recognize your value without you defending it. There's also a deeper psychological layer to this. Every time you share your vision, your brain gets a small reward. It feels like you've already achieved something juice. By talking about it, that illusion can weaken your drive. Talking too much can make you feel like you're progressing, when in reality, you're only rehearsing your potential. Protecting your story doesn't mean isolation. It means being intentional about your audience. Share it with those who inspire growth, not gossip. Confide in those who push you forward, not pull you back. Silence isn't secrecy, it's strategy. The world today makes it easy to overshare. Every platform invites you to explain yourself, to show your moves before they're ready. But power often lies in restraint. When you learn to stay silent, to let time speak for you, you develop a quiet confidence that doesn't need permission to exist. And people notice that. Silence earns more respect than explanation ever will. So be careful with your story. It's the most valuable thing you own. It carries your battles, your wisdom, your essence. Don't hand it to people who haven't earned the right to hear it. Let your story out in the dark until it's strong enough to stand in the light. Because when it finally does, no one, not doubt, not criticism, not envy, will be able to shake it. Growth that happens in silence is the kind of growth that lasts in a world that constantly pressures us to show, to prove, to display our progress. There's something deeply powerful about developing privately. Real transformation doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the quiet hours when no one is watching, when you're still figuring out who you are and what you truly stand for. The problem is, many people confuse visibility with success. They believe that if the world can't see it, it doesn't count. But that's a mistake. What you build in silence becomes the foundation of what the world will eventually respect. When you grow privately, you're not performing. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're building conviction, not reputation. You learn to rely on your own discipline, not applause. And that's what makes the growth real. Because once you stop performing for approval, you begin working for purpose. It's easy to look successful on the surface, to project confidence, to post progress. But that kind of growth is fragile. It's dependent on feedback. When the likes stop coming, the motivation fades. True strength, however, doesn't need to be seen to be real. It comes from the process itself, from the struggle, the repetition, the commitment to keep going even when no one's clapping. I've always believed that quiet seasons are where leaders are made. It's where you learn patience, humility, and focus. It's where you begin to understand that not every step needs an audience. Think of a tree. Before it grows tall, it grows roots. Those roots are invisible, but they're what hold the tree steady when storms come. People who skip their private growth phase often collapse when pressure hits because their roots aren't deep enough. They've built visibility, not stability. There's also a psyche, a logical strength that develops in silence. When you work without external validation, you train your mind to depend on internal reward. That's where true confidence begins. Not in being praised, but in knowing what you've built inside yourself. When you reach that stage, criticism doesn't break you, and praise doesn't control you. You become balanced. You move with purpose, not emotion. Sometimes people say, but if I stay silent, no one will notice my progress. That's fine. Let them not notice. The world always notices eventually, but only when your results become undeniable. There's nothing louder than success that speaks for itself. And when it does, it carries more power because people sense it's authentic. So don't rush to show your growth. Let it mature in silence. Let your discipline do the talking. Build roots before you build reputation. Because when you grow privately, you become unshakable publicly. When that happens, you won't need to tell the world who you are. The world will tell itself. Most people only celebrate success when it's visible. They see the finished product, the public victory, the highlight reel, but they rarely see the process behind it. The world is quick to applaud the results, but slow to understand the journey. That's why when you're still in the middle of your struggle, when your dream is half built and your results are still invisible, you have to be very careful about who you share your journey with. Because people who can't see your vision yet will often doubt your direction. When you tell people about your plans too early, they look at your situation as it is, not as it will be. They judge your future by your current reality. But visionaries know something others don't. They see what isn't visible yet. They work while others question. They believe before results appear. That's what separates those who succeed from those who stop halfway. Every big dream goes through a phase where it looks foolish to others. Every great builder looks like a dreamer before the foundation is finished. And if you open your process too early to people who don't understand that, their doubt can slow you down, or worse, make you doubt yourself. I've seen this happen many times. A young entrepreneur starts something new, full of passion, full of ideas. He shares it with friends, with family, expecting encouragement. But instead he gets fear. What if it fails? That's too risky. But maybe you should wait, and little by little that noise begins to reshape his confidence. He hasn't failed yet, but he starts to believe he might. That's why it's not always wise to invite too many voices into your early stages. Protect your dream when it's still fragile. Work quietly until your progress begins to speak for itself. The truth is, most people are not against you. They just don't see what you see. They only know the world as it is, not as it could be. So don't take it personally when they don't understand your journey. You are not here to convince them. You are here to create what they cannot imagine. Once your results appear, they'll understand, and they'll call it a luck or untiming, not realizing it was courage, patience, and silence that built it. There's a deep psychological lesson here. People value what they can measure, not what they can't. That's why the journey gets ignored and the outcome gets celebrated. But remember this, the journey is what builds the strength to sustain the outcome. Success without the struggle behind it is temporary. It collapses under pressure because it was never tested. So when you're walking your path and no one sees the progress, don't get elf. Every time you defend your dream, every time you try to convince someone who doesn't believe in you, you're spending energy that could have been used to move forward. Energy is like currency. Spend it wisely. Too many people waste it on conversations that lead nowhere, arguments that change nothing, and validation that means little. The moment you start caring too much about who understands you, you lose focus on what actually builds you. When you're chasing a goal, your energy is your most valuable asset. It fuels your creativity, your focus, your persistence. But the world will constantly try to pull it away through distractions, negativity, unnecessary debates. If you give your energy to everyone who asks for it, you'll have nothing left for yourself. That's why learning to say less, to explain less, to justify less is not arrogance, it's discipline. People who achieve great things are not always the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who learn where to invest. Their attention. Think about it. Every time you try to explain your vision to someone who's not ready to understand it, you walk away frustrated. Not because you failed to communicate, but because you tried to share something that wasn't meant for that space. It's like pouring clean water into a dirty cup. No matter how pure your message, it gets clouded. Protecting your energy means being selective with your audience. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to stay aligned with your purpose. Psychologically, the need to explain yourself comes from insecurity, from wanting approval. But the moment you grow confident in your direction, the need to justify disappears. You stop performing for people's understanding and start acting from conviction. That's when you become powerful, because silence backed by certainty speaks louder than any argument. In today's world where everyone has an opinion about everything, it's easy to get caught in the noise. Someone criticizes your choices and you feel the urge to respond. Someone questions your path and you want to prove them wrong. But mature confidence knows that silence can't be misquoted. When you stop reacting to every comment, you save your emotional and mental strength for what truly matters, your progress. You must remember this. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not everyone deserves your attention. Every explanation costs focus, and every defense costs peace. Guard both fiercely. People may misunderstand your silence, but let them. The energy you save in silence becomes the power you use in action. So, guard your energy like a treasure. Don't waste it explaining what time will prove. Don't exhaust yourself trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. Let your results do the talking. Because in the end, nothing defends your vision better than success that no one can argue with. Silence has a kind of power that words can't match. In a world that rewards loudness, constant talking, and self-promotion, silence stands out. It commands respect because it's rare. When you walk into a room and stay quiet, people notice. They wonder what you're thinking, what you know, what gives you that calm confidence. Silence builds curiosity, and curiosity builds influence. But beyond appearances, silence has a deeper strength. It allows you to think before reacting, to observe before judging, to understand before speaking. That's how wise people operate. They don't waste words, they use them with precision. There's an old saying that still holds true, and the loudest person in the room is often the weakest. People who constantly need to prove themselves are usually compensating for uncertainty. They use noise to hide insecurity. But those who are truly confident, truly at peace with who they are, don't need to announce it. They let their actions speak. They let results, not arguments, define them. That's the quiet power of silence. It doesn't need recognition to be effective. In business, in leadership, in relationships, silence gives you control. When you don't rush to respond, you gain perspective. You notice details others miss. You allow people to reveal themselves through their words. You make better decisions because you're not reacting, you're processing. That's one of the most overlooked advantages in life. Most people are too busy talking to listen, too busy proving to learn. But growth requires stillness. Insight requires silence. There's also a psychological dimension to this. When you stay silent, you create space. And in that space, your mind becomes sharper. You start to understand patterns, emotions, motives, both in yourself and others. You begin to see how people communicate not just through words, but through tone, timing, and body language. Silence makes you a better observer. And observation is the foundation of intelligence. But let's be clear, silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. Being quiet doesn't mean being passive. It means knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. A well-timed word after a moment of silence has 10 times more impact than a stream of endless talking. The person who can sit in silence without discomfort has mastered self-control, and that's the root of all power. The irony is the world misunderstands silence. It mistakes it for emptiness, when in truth it's full of strength. When you can stay calm in chaos, when you can choose restraint over reaction, you stand out. People respect what they can't predict, and silence makes you unpredictable in the best way. So, practice silence, not just in speech, but in thought. Learn to listen more, to observe more, to let your presence speak louder than your words, because true strength doesn't need to announce itself. The quietest person in the room often holds the most authority, not because they say much, but because when they finally do, everyone listens. Every story has its season. The mistake many people make is thinking they must tell theirs before it's ready. Wisdom lies in understanding timing, knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to let the results reveal everything for you. If you share your story too early, before the lesson has matured, you risk exposing something that's still fragile. You invite opinions before the meaning is clear, and that can distort your growth. Every seed needs time beneath the soil before it faces the sun. The same is true for your journey. It must be rooted before it is revealed. When something meaningful is happening in your life, it's natural to want to tell people. You want to share the breakthrough, the new idea, the transformation you're feeling. But often, the early stages of growth are delicate. You're still learning, still adjusting, still unsure of what the full picture looks like. If you open it too soon to the world, you invite distractions, doubts, and unnecessary pressure. It's like revealing a painting before it's finished. People will judge what isn't done, not realizing that the most important details are still being created. Philosophically, there's something sacred about allowing things to mature in silence. Growth isn't just about what happens outside, it's about what forms inside you. Silence gives space for clarity to develop. It allows lessons to set, strengthening character. Others are for sharing, for teaching, for inspiring others with what you've learned. The wisdom lies in knowing which season you're in. There's also a psychological truth here. People respect what feels complete. When your story is told from a place of strength and understanding, it resonates deeper. It doesn't sound like a cry for validation. It sounds like a gift of perspective. That's the difference between speaking too soon and speaking at the right time. One drains your energy, the other multiplies your impact. So, let your story breathe. Let it find its shape. Don't rush to explain. What time will clarify. There is power in waiting until your healing becomes strength, until your confusion becomes clarity. Your scars become wisdom. When you finally speak from that place, your story won't just be heard, it will be felt. And when it's felt, it will move people far more deeply than words ever could.